The game got physical, and then this happened.
1 on 2, 1 on 3, couldn't get it. And put back, no, it did fall. Now Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller having a go at it. And I mean, we got fist rolling, here come the bench.
Of all the rivalries MJ ever had, none cut as deep as his beef with Reggie Miller. And when I say hate, I'm talking about a grudge that lived rent-free in Jordan's head for decades. Reggie didn't just talk smack.
If I had to pick a team that gave us the toughest time in the East, Indiana was probably the toughest outside of the...
He got under MJ's skin like nobody else ever could. He made Jordan snap, lose his cool, and even threw hands with him right in the middle of a game. We're diving straight into the chaos of why MJ couldn't stand this man, and trust me, it's way more personal than you think. To really understand how this whole war began, you've got to roll it back to that exhibition game in 1987. Reggie Miller was fresh in the league, all energy and ego, ready to prove himself against the greatest player alive. But unlike most rookies who knew better, Reggie just had to run his mouth early. Jordan wasn't exactly cooking yet. He only had 4 points at halftime, and that's when Reggie thought he spotted an opening. He decided to test fate.
People have asked me for years why I couldn't stand Reggie Miller. It wasn't the trash talk or even the way he played. It was the way he carried himself, like he actually thought he was built like me. That's when I knew he had no idea who he was messing with.
And poked the bear by saying this. Imagine mouthing off to a guy in his 3rd season who's dropping 37 a game. That's wild confidence or straight up madness. The crazy part? MJ didn't even bite back. He just gave that cold smirk, a little nod, and kept it moving like, all right, bet.
2.9 seconds. Harper's on Miller. McKee gets it in the middle for the win.
But once the second half tipped off, it was over. It was like someone hit a switch inside him. Jordan went from chill mode to straight assassin vibes.
It brought back a lot of those good and bad memories of going against that dude.
Were you interviewed for this?
Again, reluctantly, yes. I tried to fight it. I actually did. I didn't
Reg,
want to do it.
You know that Michael had to approve everybody.
Every possession turned into a statement. Bucket after bucket, he torched the court and made it loud and clear who the king really was.
It's like, you're right, Michael. Who do you think you are? The great Michael Jordan? That's right, there's a new kid on town.
By the time the game ended, MJ had dropped over 40 points while Reggie was left stunned and speechless. He even admitted later it was the first and last time he ever talked trash to Michael Jordan again. That game wasn't just funny, it was the birth of something bigger. From that night on, Reggie wasn't just another player to MJ.
People ask why I hated Reggie Miller. Here's your answer.
He was the rookie who crossed the line and forced Jordan to remind everyone who ruled the league. And if there's one thing about MJ, it's that he never forgets a slight. What started off as harmless preseason banter turned into years of pure tension. Every Bulls-Pacers matchup carried extra heat.
Jordan putting the move on Porter, stopped by Drexler.
MJ always came for Reggie like it was personal. And by 1993, things finally exploded into a full-blown fight right there on the court. By then, Reggie wasn't some rookie anymore. He'd become the face of the Pacers.
On the drive, in for the left, gets chased into the corner, comes right back. Through the foul!
Patrick
Dropping 20 a night and building a rep as one of the league's most irritating sharpshooters. And I don't mean annoying like Patrick Beverley screaming at refs. I mean the kind of player who sticks to you like glue, never stops talking, and somehow always gets the whistle. When Indiana faced Chicago that March, you could feel the tension buzzing through the arena like static in the air. The Bulls were locked in on their three-peat mission. MJ was at the peak of his powers. And Reggie Miller was desperate to prove the Pacers weren't just extras in the Michael Jordan show. Things got heated, bodies were flying, and then, boom, it all erupted right there on the court. 1-on-2, 1-on-3, bang, couldn't get it. Then chaos. Players lunged, the crowd roared, and for a split second, it didn't feel like basketball anymore. It felt like war. But that scrap wasn't just random. No way. That fight was about respect. Jordan had this unwritten code, his own rule book. You could go at him physically, test his strength, sure. But if you tried to act like you were on his level, that's when he took it personally. MJ didn't just want to win, he wanted you to know your place. But Reggie, he didn't care one bit. He crossed that invisible line with a smirk, like he was daring the king to do something about it. If the 1993 fight showed the world how deep their rivalry went, the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals took it to another level. This wasn't just about pride anymore. It was legacy versus ambition. Jordan's so-called last dance was on the line. The Bulls were chasing a 6th championship in 8 years. Their dynasty was limping toward its final act, and Indiana finally had the squad to crash the party. Reggie rolled in with Rick Smits, Mark Jackson, Chris Mullin, and a young Jalen Rose ready for war. This wasn't some underdog story anymore. It was a straight-up heavyweight showdown. The Pacers weren't backing down, not even an inch. Every game felt like a street fight in sneakers. The series went the distance. 7 brutal games of elbows, attitude, and pure chaos. Chicago had the rings, the legacy, the aura. But Indiana, they had nothing to lose, and Reggie thrived in that energy. He loved being the villain. Game 4, that's where it all hit peak insanity. Pacers down 1, clock ticking, and who's guarding Reggie? None other than Michael Jordan himself. MJ was glued to him, chest to chest, refusing to give him air to breathe. Most players would have folded, but not Reggie. He shoved Jordan off, stepped back smooth, and drained a 3 with under a second left on the clock. Market Square Arena exploded like a volcano. Fans were losing their minds, and Reggie sprinted off, pounding his chest like he'd just taken down a god. And honestly, for that one wild moment, it felt like he did. That shove, it became the image of their beef. I mean, who else would ever dare push Michael Jordan in a playoff game on national TV? Nobody. Not then, not now. And the craziest part, no whistle, no foul. If that happened in today's NBA, social media would crash in seconds from the madness. For Indiana, that moment was proof. They weren't afraid of the Bulls' legacy anymore. But for Jordan, that was a slap in the face. He already thought Reggie was the most irritating dude alive, and now the man was literally shoving him aside in front of millions and getting away with it. And don't forget, MJ himself admitted the Pacers were the toughest squad he ever faced in the East outside of the Bad Boys. That says everything, but we'll get to that chaos soon. Think about it. The rookie trash talk gone wrong in '87, a full-on brawl in '93, and that disrespectful shove in '98 that almost cracked a dynasty. But even after all that drama, one big question still hangs in the air. Why did Jordan single out Reggie Miller more than anyone else? This is where things get wild. Because MJ had rivalries with pretty much every big name of the '90s, but there was something different about Reggie. Let's line them up. Take Charles Barkley, for example. On the court, those two went at each other like gladiators. Barkley even snatched the 1993 MVP right out of MJ's hands, and that finals clash? Straight up warfare. But off the court, there was real love and respect. Jordan liked Barkley. He respected his grind, and Barkley respected MJ's killer instinct. They'd hit the golf course together, joke around, hang out. It was like two lions who understood each other's roar. Their real fallout didn't even come until years later when Barkley criticized Jordan's ownership of the Hornets. That wasn't about basketball. That was about pride and business. Then you've got Patrick Ewing. Knicks versus Bulls was annual combat. Every spring, those two teams beat each other up like it was personal, and no one took more playoff heartbreak from MJ than Ewing. But here's the thing. There was still mutual respect there. Ewing knew he was facing the GOAT, and MJ respected Ewing's toughness and loyalty to New York. Whenever Jordan talks about his hardest battles, the Knicks always come up because of Ewing's presence and that warrior mentality. And then, Clyde Drexler. Oh man, the media really tried to paint Clyde as Jordan's equal heading into the '92 finals, which in hindsight was just comedy. Because once the lights hit, MJ torched him. 6 threes in the first half of Game 1. 6. He completely dismantled that narrative in one night. So yeah, Jordan had his rivals, but Reggie Miller, that was personal. It wasn't just about stats or championships. It was about attitude. Reggie didn't bow down, didn't play humble. And that's what made MJ see red every single time. Even MJ admitted the Pacers were the toughest team he faced in the East outside of the Bad Boys. And that says a lot about how ugly those matchups got. But we'll circle back to that fire soon. Think about the timeline. Rookie trash talk in '87, a full-on brawl in '93, and that shove in '98 that nearly cracked the Bulls' image. Still, the real question is simple. Why did Jordan single out Reggie Miller above everyone else? That's where the story gets wild and personal. Jordan had beef with a lot of top guys in the '90s, but he treated them differently. Take Charles Barkley. On the court, they fought like beasts, and Barkley even nabbed the 1993 MVP from Jordan. But off the court, they hung tight and respected each other's grind. They golfed, they joked, they understood each other like two alpha dogs. Patrick Ewing was another straight-up war every playoff season. Knicks versus Bulls meant violence and heartbreak for New York, and Ewing took serious punishment from MJ. But the respect was mutual. Ewing played hard, and Jordan respected that toughness. Clyde Drexler got hyped as Jordan's peer, but after the '92 finals, MJ shut that narrative down and still gave Clyde props as one of the league's greats. Even when Jordan cooked him on the biggest stage, credit was given where it was due. Now compare all that to Reggie. With Reggie, there was no respect, no nod, no "you made me better" type talk, just straight irritation. Jordan didn't see Miller as an equal rival. He saw him as a pest who hadn't earned the right to poke the king, yet kept poking anyway. And you don't have to take my word for the venom. Jordan said it himself in an interview with ESPN. He said, "I don't really dislike anybody in the league, but playing Reggie Miller drives me nuts." Then he went even harder with his take. He said, "It's like chicken fighting with a woman. His game is all this flopping type thing. He weighs only 185 pounds, so you have to be careful. Don't touch him, or it's a foul. He has his hands on you all the time, like a woman holding your waist. I just want to beat his hands off because it's illegal. It irritates me." That line paints the whole picture. MJ wasn't just annoyed by talk. He despised Miller's style, crafty baiting, and made to fool refs. To Jordan, Miller wasn't playing straight-up hard-nosed basketball. He was playing an irritating, sneaky game that to MJ didn't belong on the same floor as real competitors. That's vintage MJ right there. He didn't get mad because Reggie scored or talked trash. He got mad at the audacity. Jordan lived to dominate people so completely that they'd never dare challenge him again. That was his whole philosophy, total psychological control. And that's exactly why Reggie Miller crawled so deep under his skin, because Reggie refused to play by the script. Most players, when MJ started torching them, just kept their heads down and took the loss like soldiers. They might fight back for a few plays, but deep down, they knew they were facing the best to ever do it. But Reggie? Oh no, he wasn't built like that. He'd hit a three, strut back down the floor, and whisper something slick right in Jordan's ear. Then he'd jab an elbow into MJ's ribs, flop the second Jordan touched him, and throw his arms up like, "Ref, you saw that." That's the kind of stuff that made Jordan lose his mind. Because in MJ's world, there was an order, a clear hierarchy. Michael Jordan on top, and everyone else scrambling for whatever was left. But Reggie acted like that memo never reached Indiana. He didn't care who MJ was. He just kept poking the bear over and over. And let's not forget, this wasn't some finals MVP or all-NBA first-teamer doing it. This was Reggie Miller, a skinny sharpshooter from Indiana who refused to bow down to the king. He was that annoying kid in school who kept tapping your shoulder, and when you finally turned around ready to snap, he just smiled and tapped again. Jordan hated that with a passion, because it chipped away at the aura he built, the fear, the silence, the sense that he was untouchable. He worked his whole career to create that image of dominance. And here came Reggie, smirking, flopping, talking nonstop, daring to mock it. This wasn't just basketball anymore. It was mental warfare. And the wildest part, Reggie was crazy enough to keep swinging even when he knew Jordan could end him at any moment. That's what made it legendary. He didn't care about status. He cared about standing his ground. If you still doubt that Reggie Miller wasn't scared of Michael Jordan, just rewatch the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals. That shove, the one everyone's seen 1,000 times, became the defining highlight of Reggie's career. It summed up their whole relationship in one single moment. Jordan was the untouchable icon, and Reggie was the wild one, bold enough to literally push him aside in front of millions. But that series wasn't just about one shot. It was about survival. The Pacers were this close to rewriting history. If Indiana had pulled it off, Jordan's entire legacy could have looked different. No perfect 6-0 finals record, no flawless ending to the Bulls dynasty. By 1998, the Pistons were gone, the Knicks were worn down, and the rest of the East had folded. The only one left standing in Jordan's way was Reggie Miller. But Indiana never backed down. They believed they could take the Bulls, and they carried that fire like a badge of honor. Reggie Miller stood right at the center of that resistance, loud, fearless, and unshakable. And for Jordan, that was pure madness. He'd spent years breaking down every opponent, forcing them into silence and submission, and yet here was Reggie, still out there flopping, grinning, and draining clutch shots right in his face. When The Last Dance dropped in 2020, it reignited every old rivalry from MJ's career, but none hit harder than his war with Reggie Miller. More than 20 years had passed, and you could still feel the tension. Jordan told the story of that first encounter back in 1987, the preseason game where Reggie ran his mouth, and he told it with that same legendary smirk. On camera, he laughed and called himself Black Jesus, reminding everyone exactly what he said that night. This dude had no idea who he was messing with. And the thing is, he wasn't saying it out of nostalgia or humor. You could tell that even decades later, the memory still meant something to him. That grudge was carved deep. Reggie's been real about it too. In a 2020 interview on The Dan Patrick Show, he admitted he was hesitant to even do the interview for The Last Dance. That alone tells you everything. He knew how MJ operated. Nothing went into that documentary without Jordan's stamp of approval. And that right there shows the difference. Jordan could still joke around with Charles Barkley on the golf course, at least before their friendship fell apart in 2012. He was always chill with Magic Johnson, laughing and reminiscing like old legends do. But with Reggie, nothing. No laughs, no small talk, just silence. That cold shoulder stretched long into retirement. Guys like Clyde Drexler and Patrick Ewing earned Jordan's respect. They were rivals who shared that mutual appreciation of greatness. But Reggie, he never got that handshake, never got that nod. He was the one who truly got under MJ's skin and stayed there. And now, looking back, it's easy to see why. Most of Jordan's other rivalries came from something bigger: respect, legacy, competition at the top. But with Reggie, it wasn't about titles or stats. It was personal. Because when MJ looked at Miller, he didn't see a co-star. He saw an irritant who dared to mess with his throne. Reggie wasn't scared of the crown, and that's what drove Jordan wild. And when you think about famous NBA feuds, most of them, like Shaq and Kobe, had deeper layers. That one wasn't just teammates arguing, it was two massive personalities colliding while trying to dominate the same empire. But with MJ and Reggie, it was raw energy, unfiltered ego, and decades of tension bottled up in every stare, shove, and smirk. Shaq thought Kobe took life too seriously, and Kobe thought Shaq was too lazy to match his grind. The Lakers' locker room turned into a full-blown soap opera before reality TV was even a thing. Phil Jackson wasn't just coaching basketball. He was babysitting egos, juggling tempers, and trying to keep the whole thing from exploding. And the wild part, it actually worked. As toxic as it got behind the scenes, that beef brought banners. 3 straight championships, back to back to back, while the two stars could barely look at each other off the court. To this day, fans still debate who mattered more to that run, Shaq's dominance in the paint or Kobe's relentless hunger. But at the end of it all, the results speak louder than all the chaos. Looking back now, people almost laugh about how insane it was that two dudes who could barely coexist still managed to build one of the greatest dynasties ever. Then you move forward a generation. Steph Curry's Warriors had their own drama. You had moments where tempers flared between stars like Draymond and KD, or Draymond and even teammates like Barnes back in the day. But nothing hit like what went down with LeBron and Draymond in 2016. That finals was pure chaos. The Cavs were barely hanging on, down 3-1, when everything flipped in one unforgettable moment. LeBron stepped right over Draymond and Draymond reacted, caught him low with a swing that got him suspended. That one suspension cracked the door open, and Cleveland charged straight through it. The Cavs pulled off the impossible comeback, and LeBron dropped to his knees screaming, "Cleveland, this is for you!" Right there on the hardwood. It was iconic, but here's the thing. Even with all that tension, there was still respect. Draymond later said, LeBron was one of the smartest players he's ever faced, and LeBron never wasted energy on guys he didn't respect. That rivalry burned hot, but it was built on competition, not hatred. Two warriors colliding at the highest level, not enemies plotting revenge. Now, you line that up next to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and that's a whole different story. That one wasn't about basketball. It was personal. It was betrayal. KD and Russ were supposed to be the future, the duo that would take over the league, Oklahoma City's own version of Jordan and Pippen. They were young, electric, and dangerous together. Westbrook thought he had his ride or die for the long haul. But when KD walked out and joined the very team that beat them, it flipped everything upside down. What was once brotherhood turned into pure bitterness, proving that not all NBA beefs end in banners. Some end in heartbreak. Then KD dipped straight to the very team that had just knocked him out. To Westbrook, that wasn't just a move, that was betrayal. Suddenly, you had All-Star weekends where Russ wouldn't even look at him. Thunder fans booed every time Durant touched the ball, and KD was out here clapping back on burner accounts like it was some high school breakup gone public. For a while, it felt like the coldest split in NBA history, but time has a way of cooling even the hottest fire. Russ kept grinding, chasing respect. KD stacked rings and MVPs. And even though fans still debate who was right and who folded, that raw heat from 2016 just isn't the same anymore. And this right here is where Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller's beef stands out from all the rest. Their feud wasn't born from locker room tension like Shaq and Kobe, or finals battles like LeBron and Draymond, or betrayal like KD and Russ. No, this one was built on pure irritation. It was pride clashing with ego, disrespect mixing with stubbornness, and every little dig stacking up until MJ just couldn't let it go. Reggie was never Jordan's equal, not even close, but somehow he got under his skin deeper than anyone else ever managed. And the proof? Even in 2020, MJ was still grinning, still bringing up Black Jesus like it all just happened yesterday. That's how deep this thing ran. It went way beyond basketball. This was about pride, about an unstoppable legend being annoyed that someone dared to mess with him and didn't back down. And that energy didn't just live on the court. It spilled out into the culture, because when Jordan and Miller faced off, the world stopped. Pacers versus Bulls games in the 90s were must-see TV. Every matchup promised drama, tension, and that electric moment when Reggie would poke the ultimate bear. Fans tuned in not just to watch basketball, but to watch the chaos unfold. Every smirk, every bump, every shove. Reggie's legacy is forever tied to those moments, to being the one man bold enough to stand up to the greatest player alive and actually get a reaction out of him. He didn't need to beat Jordan to make history. Just getting under his skin was enough to leave a mark. And when MJ finally came out on top, as he always did, it didn't just prove his dominance, it magnified his legend. The media ate it up. Pop culture turned it into myth. The calm, divine superstar versus the fearless agitator. Every flop, every shove, every wild finish was replayed like it was a movie scene. So now the real question is this: did Michael Jordan truly hate Reggie Miller? Or deep down, did he love having someone bold enough to challenge his throne? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more insane NBA stories just like this one.